you very much for inviting me to come and talk to you today. I'm not from College Station, although I lived here for 1 year. When I moved here to teach at A&M, I moved here in '76, and I lived in College Station a year. And then I hightailed it north to Bryan so I could live where the grown-ups were. Well, I calls them like I sees them, but at any rate, I am very pleased to be here, and it's going to be a delight for me to get to tell you about the windows at St. Andrews. It was not a delight that the windows that they were vandalized, but wonderful stuff has been happening since then. So when is a window more than just a window? Maybe by the end of the presentation, we'll have an answer for that rhetorical question. So I guess, click.
Not a left click, not a right click.
There we go. There we go. This is our historic St. Andrews Episcopal Church in downtown Bryan. We're at the corner of 26th and Parker Streets. I guess College Station is not old enough to have a church that's as old as this one. But our congregation of St. Andrews Episcopal started in Milliken in 1864 during the last years of the Civil War. There was a group of Episcopalians in the Milliken area, and they gathered for a prayer service in 1864 with the first bishop of Texas, Bishop Gregg. And so we count that prayer meeting as the genesis of our parish at St. Andrew's Church. The congregation moved to Bryan in 1868 because of the raging yellow fever epidemic that was then decimating the population of Milliken. And so the stories are that the people in Milliken loaded the lumber, the timber from their buildings, they loaded their livestock, they loaded their families and kids, and they came up the road all the way to the new city of Bryan. So St. Andrews Episcopal Church is one of the oldest churches in Bryan because the Bryan tenure started in 1868. This building, obviously, is not from 1868. This is the third of the buildings that St. Andrews has had here in town. This building was dedicated in 1914, and so we're in the process of planning our centennial of the building, if you would. Probably the crowning glory of St. Andrews are the windows, and I'll give you a brief little tour and ask rhetorically again, when is a window more than just a window? St. Andrews is not a very big building, but we have a total of 20 stained glass windows in the building. Inside the nave of the church, the windows depict the life of Christ. Starting with the Holy Family, the Nativity window, starting with the life of Christ, and then moving to the next one, please. This one has the title down at the bottom. This is "Suffer the Little Children," one of the more beautiful windows, I think. The next one. This window, which is of a totally different style, the Transfiguration of Christ. You can see that Moses on the left and Ezekiel on the right, and the transfigured Christ in the middle. This window is so different from the others because this is a replacement window from 1938. The last time the windows at St. Andrews suffered any damage was a lightning strike in 1938. And this particular window was buckled by the impact of the lightning. So this replacement, this is a window from England. It was made in Exeter. And the story at the church is that this window was on the last ship that left Southampton before the Nazi bombing started in World War II. The next one, please. Then as you come around the church onto the east side, still depicting the periods of the life of Christ, this is our Crucifixion Window. a magnificent window that gratefully did not suffer any damage. The next one. This is the Resurrection Window, and we see Mary Magdalene weeping at the bottom, and the risen Christ there in the background. People have asked, why doesn't the Mary figure have a halo when everybody else has had a halo? Well, Mary Magdalene was not a saint. And so in the iconography of the stained glass windows at St. Andrews, some of the figures do not have halos. The Judas in the Last Supper window does not have a halo. Mary Magdalene does not have a halo. This is one of the windows that was damaged. The next one. The last window, this is the Ascension Window, the risen Christ, and outstanding because of the incredible color of that bright red drapery in the robe. So get that picture in your eye, and then the next one. On the right, the most frequently asked question that people ask down at St. Andrews is, who made those windows? Who made those antique windows? And for years, the rumor has been, well, you know, they just might be Tiffany windows. Well, no, they're not Tiffany windows, but they're almost grand enough to be Tiffany. I did the research and identified that our windows were made by the Jacoby Jacoby Art Glass Company of St. Louis. You can see, you know, the title up on the top of that page. The way I got to this, when Rob Foster, Foster Stained Glass was, when they were removing the windows, the damaged windows, we were talking about, I wonder who made these. And he made the remark that he remembered that windows of this particular time period were ordered out of a pattern book. And so that was the lead I needed. So I hunted down antique pattern books of stained glass windows and came down on, you know, there's our Ascension Window without question. But without question, I'm not a professional church archivist by any stretch of the imagination. So I contacted the Stained Glass Association of America and told them what I was doing, what I had found, and was there any way they could confirm my identification. Yes, they did, because the Stained Glass Association of America has the business records of the Jacoby Company, which has been out of business for about 60 years. And in one of the ledgers, they found the work order for Episcopal Church, Bryan, Texas. So there is an absolute identification that our windows are Jacoby. That's nice, thank you. We were excited about it down at church too. The next. This is the entrance to the parlor of the church, immediately east of the main church building. You can see the part of the repair that is being done to the door. But let me give you some who, what, when, why, and how of the vandalism. Our church was attacked on the night of Friday, March the 13th of this year, 6 months ago. The assailant, the attacker, the vandal, whatever you want to call him, was a local mentally disturbed homeless man who is known pretty well in downtown Bryan. And he had just been released that day from a 6-month jail sentence. And he attacked our church that night. He was arrested within hours of the attack. I have heard, I don't know for sure, but I've heard that some of the street people ratted him out because the street people in Bryan love the church and they look out for it. They help us protect it. But the man is currently in jail on a felony charge because the amount of damage that he did was of felony status. He broke 2 of the windows. On the immediate right is the Crucifixion Window, and then you can see the reflection of the cross. That's one of the windows that was broken out. That's where the Resurrection Window was. And then further south of the Resurrection Window was the Ascension Window, which you can't even see from this picture. See, the damaged windows were back in that alcove. And so he was protected while he did it. He broke into our tool shed, took the axe and shovels out of the tool shed and proceeded to batter those windows into submission, and then proceeded to throw everything else, practically everything else that was in the tool shed. He threw through the holes that he had made and threw all that stuff, including the shovels and the axe that he had used, threw all that stuff into the church. The next. This is what we saw. This is from the outside. That's the tempered glass did what it could, but no tempered glass could withstand the fury of his attack. This is the bottom part of the resurrection window. Our problem at St. Andrews as a church was coming to grips with this deliberate, malicious attack on our church. How does the church handle something like that? There was a whole range of emotions. Some people felt forgiveness for the assailants. Others were furious with him. We were all heartbroken and sad. We all cried about it. And there were still other people at the church who kept saying that we needed to get things into perspective, because after all, a window is just a window. If you'd do the next one. So a window is just a window. This is what it looked like from the inside after there had been some cleanup. The tempered glass had been removed, and we had the inside of the church cleaned up, but this is what met parishioners on Sunday morning. The next one. To give you some idea of the viciousness of the attack, you can see how broken and bent the frame of this window is. It was framed in iron, and those horizontal support bars are iron. The horizontal bars and the tempered glass. The tempered glass absorbed a lot of the force, but once he got through the tempered glass, he had a direct hit. And you can see how distorted it was. The next one. And to give you some idea of the force, the fury, the rage with which he was battering the windows, those bars were broken and the caming is bent. Okay. Well, what do you do when the windows are broken out of your church? We're lucky in this community because we have Foster Stained Glass Studio down on South College. I called Mr. Foster as soon as I recovered enough to have enough sense to do it. I called him and said, "You've got to come and help us." Foster's had looked after our windows for years and years, so he knew what he was in for. And so that's Rob Foster with the chisel up on the scaffold. That's his son Quint. There with the window that, the one on the far right. The windows were so badly damaged that they couldn't be removed in one piece. Since the center was bashed out of both of them, they had to be removed in two pieces. The next one. This slide, I think, gives you some idea of how big those windows are. They're almost 9 feet tall, and you can see that it's quite a job to get them out of the frames. The next one. And it was late in the afternoon, almost evening, you can see by the shadows, by the time they got finished. And here is the intact Mary Magdalene. See the iron support bars. So it kept that figure from being totally destroyed. The part that was destroyed were the rocks in the background. The next one. And so these are the windows. When is a window just a window? You can see the reflection on the tempered glass that was put in so that to protect the building, so that we would have something. But this is what we look at every Sunday. The next one, please. Well, what happens to the windows after they're taken out? Again, we were very fortunate with Foster's just down the street from us because they took the windows directly to the studio, and the first thing that they had to do was lay the windows out on one of the work tables so that they could assess the damage. This is the resurrection window, and you can see from still another perspective that these are severely damaged windows. These are almost destroyed windows. The next one. Well, how does the restoration process work? This is a cartoon of the windows. Cartoon is, believe it or not, is the technical name for this kind of a drawing. If any of you ever have the misfortune that the stained glass windows in your church get bashed out, I hope that you're as fortunate as we were to have high-resolution digital photographs of the windows in their original state. Because we sent out an all-points bulletin to our parish saying, any and everybody who has photographs of the windows, please send them to me, because we need a good photograph so that this cartoon template, it's a template. What this is a life-sized image of the original window. And what's going to happen to that, the next, the damaged window has to be taken completely apart. You know, all of the lead has to be pulled away from the glass without breaking any of the original glass that remains. And this young man, who is just graduated from A&M, one of the craftsmen at Foster's, he had the job of dismantling the window, because what he does and what the cartoon is for, as the pieces are as the leading is removed, the piece is placed on the template so that they can keep track of exactly what they have and what pieces have to be replaced. The next slide. The process is labor intensive because of this sort of part of the process. A pattern has to be made of each piece of glass that needs to be replaced. Any glass that is cracked or chipped or broken cannot be reused. The physics of what holds a stained glass window together, the panes have to be intact. They can't piece one together. And so the brown paper that you see sort of crumpled up on, this is the resurrection window, are the patterns that have been drawn on wrapping paper. Because the replacement glass, some of it came from Foster's stock. You can see, you know, they have their samples up there in the windows. They had some of the necessary colored glass in stock. Other glass had to be special ordered. There's one company in the United States that still makes the blown and rolled glass that is used as replacement glass in stained glass windows, because damage to stained glass windows is more common than any of us realize. Trees fall, hurricanes hit, there are explosions, all sorts of things bust out stained glass windows, and this company in Kokomo, Indiana, makes the replacement glass. The next slide. A close-up to show you those of you women who piece quilts. This seems very much to me like cutting the pattern to piece a quilt. And you can see the markings on the brown paper are codes that the craftsmen there at the studio use so that they will be able to tell exactly where their pattern came from, cut the right piece of glass, and so forth. And then it's quite simple. Again, it's like quilting. You just cut out a piece of glass according to the pattern. And that's Rob Foster cutting it out. The next step after all the pieces of replacement glass have been cut according to their pattern and placed back on the template. The next step is that all those pieces of glass have to be painted. Now, the windows at St. Andrews are technically stained glass windows, but they are painted stained glass windows. The glass itself has pigment in it, but then all of the detail is hand painted. So what we have here an intriguing picture, I think. Each of the windows that were broken, because they depict the life of Christ, had a Christ figure. The window on the larger one on your right, you can see the crack across it. That face was broken and it's scotch taped together. But the technique that glass studios that made these windows at the turn of the century, the technique that they used is the windows were painted in assembly line fashion. And so no one painter did all the work, usually even on one window. And what we realized with these two faces, although it may not be clear to you, these two faces were painted by two different artists. There are differences in brush strokes and so forth. But we were just interested in looking at them. And the pieces have to be held up to the light because painted, tinted glass is opaque if it doesn't have a light source. Now that's a piece of glass from the window. You know, it just looks like black broken glass. But if it has an intense light source behind it, this is part of the bright red robe. Quite literally, what the craftsman, the artist, had to do was paint another face. And so the original is on the right. You can see the crack across the face, and he is putting the finishing touches on his painting of the Christ's face. In a lot of ways, I think it's even prettier than the original. He said he waited until the very last thing that he painted to do the face so that he had complete control of the technique that was necessary. And you can see the photograph that guided the process. A part of the problem with the face, painting the face, that I found interesting is that the pigment interacts differently in different kinds of light. It gives one hue when it's on the light table, where it is here in the studio. It comes across with different hues when it's in the natural light down at the church. And so Scott told me that he made lots of trips back and forth between the light table at the studio and the church to make sure that he was using pigments that would come across as flesh-colored in the light, because for a while he said he was getting a green face. And so he painted, I don't know, half a dozen faces before he got the one that reacted the way it was supposed to in all the different light. Yes. The last phase of the process, each painted piece has to be fired in a kiln to fix the pigment onto the glass. And so here, they were all concerned. I left right after I took this picture because they were all concerned about whether or not the glass was going to crack. Because that piece of glass that the face is painted on was clear, and they didn't trust the composition of the glass, but it did not crack. We're almost finished. Next to the last phase of the process is the leading, also known as caming, C-A-M-I-N-G. It's called caming because a came is the strip of lead. That is, the cames are grooved on both sides on the strip of lead. This is why the windows are also called leaded glass windows. But here the craftsman is using some of the tools to bend and manipulate the leading onto the glass. The glass is laid out on top of the cartoon. The white that you see they're still using the cartoon, yes? I wasn't sure about this lead caming business, and so he picked it up and said, see how soft lead is? You just bend it by hand. And so there he's just bending it around. All the nicks and calluses on Mike's fingers are from years and years of manipulating the glass. He says his fingers, are calloused. Mm-hmm. And then the glass, after the caming has been fitted around one side of it, the glass has to be tapped into place. It has to fit very snugly. And then the joins are welded or soldered together. The problem that they had with our windows is they didn't realize until they started the leading process that the original glass is much thinner than the replacement glass. And so they had to be very, very careful that they didn't crack any of the intact pieces when they were adding the new pieces. Yes. And the last phase is framing the window into its iron frame, and so that it's strong. The frame has to be strong enough to support that almost 9 vertical feet of the length of the windows. And the stained glass windows have to have those horizontal reinforcing bars. They may not be very pretty, but they are critical to the support of the window. And I'm going to have a deeper appreciation of those horizontal support bars. I've always sort of fussed about them and thought they detracted from the window. But if it hadn't been for the horizontal support bars, we wouldn't have anything left. The bars, withstood a lot of the force. But you can see the window in the forefront is the Ascension Window, and that's what the bright red robe looks like on the light table when it doesn't have natural light behind it. And the green, when it has natural light, it looks very white. And so this part of the physics of restoring stained glass window has to do with light refraction. But with this image, I'll come back to the original rhetorical question of when is a window more than just a window? Well, stained glass windows are very special windows. They're specialized works of art which involve a lot of physical craftsmanship. And the techniques of making or restoring a stained glass window, the techniques have really not changed since the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages is when this art form was brought to its highest achievement in the cathedrals of Europe. Our stained glass windows at St. Andrews are really masterworks of the neoclassical style that was developed by American glassmakers right before the turn of the century. The style of our windows at St. Andrews is unquestionably an American style that is well known among art historians that study stained glass windows. And the fact that our windows were made by the Jacobi Company. Jacobi Art Glasses of St. Louis was one of the premier companies that made the stained glass windows during that wonderful period in American history right around the turn of the century when so many of the great churches in this country were built. And so there was quite an industry providing the stained glass windows. The function of stained glass windows in Christian churches. In the Middle Ages, the stained glass windows were the textbooks. The stained glass windows, because of the allegorical and representational style, the windows taught the illiterate congregations of peasants, taught the congregation the basics of the faith, because the people couldn't read. The Bible was not available to the general congregation. So people could look at the windows and they could learn who the great figures of the faith were, who were saints, what are the characteristics of each of the Bible characters and so forth. And we had found out, a lot of people already knew, but I found out after our windows were damaged and we have endured 6 months without them, that the windows in our church serve this teaching function for the children of our church. Because most little children don't like to sit and listen to the sermons, so they sit and look at our windows at St. Andrews. And I've heard lots and lots of anecdotes that little children love the Crucifixion Window the best because when their parents hold them up to the window, the feet are right at eye level, and so little children like to reach up and touch the boo-boos on Jesus' feet. So the windows serve that teaching function for us at St. Andrews, which is why I think that some windows are more than just windows. And I'd like to conclude by saying how grateful we are at St. Andrews for Foster Stained Glass Studio. The reason that there's nobody here from Foster's is because they're down at the church now I got a call this morning. I told Ann Hazen I was afraid I was going to be late because the windows are finished and they're being installed even as we speak. Thank you.